Welcome to Airborne on staugustine.com and 88.5 FM, bringing interesting people to your world so you can stay dialed into your community and the folks who make it tick. We have very special guests on the couch with us here on Airborne. We have from the Gullah Geechee Heritage Corridor, the ambassador. May I call you the ambassador, Derek Hankerson, or envoy, which you like that, huh? It's got a nice ring.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
Oh, there we go. And also anthropologist C.J. Godwin. C.J., welcome.
Thank you.
Now, we're here to talk about the Gullah Geechee Heritage Corridor and, of course, Fort Mose and the role it plays here in St. Augustine, St. Johns County. Now, you're kind of a newcomer to this project, C.J. How did it all get started for you?
I have a degree from the University of Florida. I knew Dr. Kathy Deegan there. However, she's on the historical side, and my background's actually prehistorical archaeology here in Florida. So I've been looking at cultures here in Florida, but so far they've been dead cultures. So this is very exciting for me to be able to work with a project that has a live, living culture who can appreciate what we're finding out and what we're sharing.
And we have a live, living ambassador right next to us, Derek Hankerson. Derek, now I know this has been a long-term project for you. We're going into actually decades.
Yes,
but this actually has a familial connection, doesn't it? Your family goes back, doesn't it?
Yes, they do.
In St. Augustine, and for our viewers, when they hear the term Gullah or Geechee, what are we referring to? Who are we referring to?
Well, the Gullah people are therefore those that are located in the low-lying coastal area of South Carolina, and Geechee people are those that are in the low-lying area of Georgia. And my dad's family actually are from both South Carolina and Georgia. And they found their way to St. Augustine in the late 1700s. However, there are other family members who have been traveling back, who had traveled from South Carolina as early as 1670.
And what role does Fort Mose play in this?
Well, those Africans, the Gullah Geechee is the closest to West African slavery as you're going to find in America. Fort Mose played a huge role because the Underground Railroad, which we're taught in school, headed north. Well, it's true. It did head north. However, it came south first, and it came south first because the Spanish were offering freedom to African Americans, or Africans. That dates back, that freedom or civil rights legislation dates back to the 1600 when King Charles I first issued a proclamation which allowed for blacks who made their way to Florida, they would be granted their freedom. In 1638, King Charles II issued an edict which allowed for black African men, women, and children if they made their way. And then in 1738, Spanish Governor Montano issued a proclamation calling for all black males who made their way to St. Augustine, and if they made their way here, they'd be granted freedom based on two things, that is, converting to Catholicism and also forming a militia. So you will find the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor extends from Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way down, excuse me, to Jacksonville, Florida, and we're currently working right now with the National Park Service to get that extended to St. Augustine. Hence, those Africans who made their way from the corridor came to St. Augustine, came to Spanish Florida seeking freedom, and when they made it here, they found it.
So that corridor, as we speak at the moment, is incomplete. We need to make the final destination.
It's incomplete only because of the fact that those that were involved with it at the time were ignorant to the fact that there were Gullahs that made their way to St. Johns County, Florida. In addition, those who served in the militia, those Africans, were most likely Gullah and Geechee.
Now, the Spanish Crown didn't offer this edict and this freedom just out of altruism.
No.
They had a good reason for it.
An ulterior motive, yes.
Sure.
But there is also a connection. We must remember that the Moors, who are in North Africa, ruled Spain from 142 to 1492, so there was a relationship there.
Right.
And if you ever visit Spain and various parts of Europe, you will see Moorish type style architecture like we
Correct.
do at the Zarata here in St. Augustine.
Correct.
It's there because they ruled. And what happened was, in the 1400s, we had a huge war between the Muslims and the Christians.
Right.
So this issue of Muslims and Christians didn't just start yesterday.
Right.
We've been fighting this battle for what, 7, 8, 9 thousands of years, and
Yeah.
it will continue. But the relationship between the Spanish and the Africans has been one that has grown or grew over time. And when the Spanish were in need of someone to help them defeat the British,
Right.
Governor James Oglethorpe, who did they call on? They called on the fiercest of fighters.
Right.
Those Africans from West Africa who had nothing to lose and all to gain.
Yeah.
And who better to fight than those who were enslaved by the people you're fighting against? The majority of people in Florida have no idea of the history of Florida. We were more than just Spanish. St. Augustine played a huge role in the international conflicts of the world. Right. And we wonder why Florida kids are 50th in education. Well, we don't teach them anything.
This is the history that we're learning as we speak. Did you find this a revelation as well, CJ?
A lot of people think that Columbus landed on Plymouth Rock, and this is a misconception. I think that's probably nationwide in our education system.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Is it
Columbus.
that bad?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I have a couple of elementary school kids, so.
Oh my. Oh goodness.
Columbus did not set foot in the United States as we know it today.
Right.
He landed in the Dominican Republic, an island Hispaniola shared with Haiti on one side and Dominican Republic on the other. Most people don't realize that. They know about Ponce de Leon and coming to Florida, and they try to push all that history together, and they think they miss that gap where Columbus and Ponce de Leon are not really related to the Plymouth Rock Pilgrims.
Prior to plate tectonics, all of Europe was pretty much, all of the world was pretty much in a ball.
Right.
And countries such as Spain, Portugal, Africa, and Europe, they all traded. So it makes common sense that Africans, Portuguese, and Spanish were all mixed in together. Now, Americans know about Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Youth, but few know that there were free black sailors who sailed on these same voyages.
Really?
Juan Las Carinas, Juan Gerardo, and Diego el Negro, to name a few. In addition, even fewer Americans know that the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor was part of the original lands granted to Spain by the Catholic Church in 1492.
The significance of this of what Derek's saying is that there were free blacks here before slavery.
Exactly.
Where do we go from here? Where are we in this process? Where is it and as it's evolving, and where can our viewers learn more?
Well, CJ and I are working with the National Park Service, and we've written a number of different letters to dignitaries as per our contacts in the National Park Service to get them to extend the corridor. Ironically, they admitted and apologized to me that they had an opportunity to acquire Fort Mose, and it could have been a national park, but get this, someone in St. Augustine dropped the ball. So we are researching what happened, why it happened, and how we can prevent it from
How to
happening
pick that
again.
ball back up. Huh?
Exactly. So we're continuing to move forward with the National Park Service while working with them to educate them.
It also makes sense for the National Park Service to pick up this piece of property because they've got Fort Matanzas down south, they've got the Castillo de San Marcos, and certainly Fort Mose was situated in a place of defense. They're there to provide protection to the city of St. Augustine, just as the other fortifications are, which are already run by the National Park Service.
So
CJ, Derek, if folks want to learn more, what's the best way they can do so?
the best way, if they want to learn more about the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor or the Underground Railroad, both National Park Service. www.np National Park Service Underground Railroad and www.Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor or Gullah Geechee. Or they can just go to Google and type in Underground Railroad, or go to Google, Yahoo, whatever, and just type in Gullah Geechee, and it'll pop up.
And of course, they can always start out right here at Fort Mose.
They sure can.
Excellent. Derek Hankerson, Ambassador.
Thank you.
As
Matt.
always, my friend. And CJ, our anthropologist.
That's right.
Thank you so much for sharing this fascinating aspect of our history with our viewers here on Airborne. I hope you will give us updates on how this process reveals itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Love to have you back.
Thank you.
You've been Airborne on 88.5 FM, WFCF, and staugustine.com, bringing interesting people to your world so you can stay dialed into your community and the folks who make it tick. See you next time, everybody.